Okay, we will call to order the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, December 6, 2017. You'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Gorfulet.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please, Sarah.
Klaus?
Here.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Gorfulet? Here. Mayor?
Here.
Lathrop?
Yep.
Crawford?
Here.
I show Johnson is excused.
We have approval of the minutes of November 15th, 2017. I do have one correction. When we appointed ad hoc committees, at the very end, where it says new business, appointed to the Airport Commission, it should be Airport Commission and the Library Board. So Commissioners Johnson, Gorfulet, and Mayor will be interviewing for Airport Commission appointments and the Library Board.
So moved with that correction.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. Now is our chance for first public comment. Sarah, will you read the rules, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may at his or her discretion extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4, Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay, do we have anyone for public comment this evening?
Chris Maxbauer, 503 West 8th Street. I'm here regarding an article that I read in Sunday's Record Eagle regarding Mr. Menzel's $1,000 expenditure for lunches. And in the article, Carol Crawford is quoted as saying, "There's a lot of money there that was spent without our knowledge or consultation." That's a lie. Crawford also said it's her review of those records that uncovered Menzel's spending and that she wasn't looking for this at all. That's also not true. Carol Crawford, Ron Klaus, and I sat on what was known as the County Finance Committee. The committee was formed at the recommendation of legal counsel Bob Cooney. He wrote a memo recommending that committee. Since Carol and Ron were new to county government, I asked Cherry Wolf to print out and provide to the Finance Committee a copy of every procurement card expenditure, and she did. Cherry would bring in hanging file folders in large plastic boxes for us to review, and they were all labeled appropriately. So Commissioner Crawford, Commissioner Klaus, and myself reviewed those procurement card printouts and the receipts on a monthly basis. And I can recall no instance, and I'm quite confident the minutes will reflect this, I can recall no instance where those expenditures were denied with only a few exceptions. We did find that some employees were purchasing houseplants for their offices, Christmas decorations for their offices, among other things. Those types of expenditures were in fact denied, but Mr. Menzel's lunches were not. I did attend one of those lunches. Mr. Menzel was interviewing someone for the HR position, and she had driven up from downstate and had a limited amount of time, and so he suggested that they go have some lunch over at the Park Place so that she could be headed home in a prompt manner. And he sat, and I sat with him and discussed what she could look forward to if she accepted, and indicated she was going to accept, the HR position. I did not allow Mr. Menzel, nor did he offer, to purchase my lunch. I didn't expense it, I didn't per diem it, nothing. But it was certainly appropriate for Mr. Menzel, as he's interviewing and talking to a new HR representative that is potentially coming to the county, that was certainly an appropriate use of funds, and Carol Crawford approved it. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Laverne Broughton, 611 Hastings Street. I'm on the Local Officers Compensation Commission. We have about 14 people now who would like to serve on that commission, and frankly, I would like to see a whole new commission, being we got a head administrator here working for us, doing a good job. I have a gentleman here tonight that would like to be on it. Either this commission or the commission before you people were told that you couldn't get veterans on that board, and you lowered the standard of the 3 terms on the board. I feel that you should take it back and only allow 3 terms on there, because there's a lot of veterans out here who serve on that board if they're asked. The chairman and vice chairman of that board have to get off their tail feathers and go to the veterans meetings and ask for people to serve on it. And when I've done that, we've come up with 4 names myself, and there's been, I guess, 10 names entered. So I personally would like to see a whole brand new board up there, including myself, starting all over, because we're going to start with a new administrator. They should be informed, though, what their duties are and what their powers are, which I didn't find out until the last 3 months, and I've been over a year and a half on that board, and I'm in the 2nd term. Their powers up there should be explained to them, that they do the hiring and firing up there, and it's their job to carry out what this county wants for their employees, of no discrimination or retaliation against the employees. And we had some things going on a while back here, and the Human Rights Board went over our board and did an investigation. But I went up and talked with all the employees myself and discovered all the, what we thought was allegations against our former director were actually true. I got the same answers as the Human Rights Board did from them all. And we've got a very fine lady that is a director up there, head administrator, who knows the director's job real well. And she's been doing a real good job up there for the last 2 months, and I feel she's been doing the director's job. I'd really like to see her get a bonus for those 2 months' hard work, and also a raise in pay, because the director was getting $70,000, but I haven't found out what she was making, because I haven't come down here and checked with the accountant. So I wish you people would consider giving her a little bonus for all the hard work that she's been doing up there. Angela helped me an awful lot as a veteran up there, and I really appreciate all the help. I hope that you elect Neil Horning, who has attended 3 or 4 of our meetings. He was also in on a couple of the meetings when we were interviewing people up there. I also have another gentleman right here with me tonight, Jeff Bobovich. Did I pronounce it right? He would like to serve on the board also. Are you going to say, Vern, get off there? You've talked too long.
You can
But
continue.
thank you for letting me get up here and talk to you. So I hope you will do some of the things I've asked you to reinstitute up there.
Okay.
Incidentally, I served 9 years on the city's Local Officer Compensation Commission. I'd soon transfer over and help you on the new commission that you're starting up. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. Anybody else for first public comment? No? All good? Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Anybody have anything to add or remove from the agenda tonight? Oh, we're all good, Tom?
I motion that we approve the agenda as it is.
I'll second it.
Moved by Commissioner Mayer, seconded by Commissioner Lathrop. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Move on to the consent calendar. Sarah, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. All information identified on the consent calendar can be viewed in its entirety at www.grandtraverse.org. A, receive and file. 1, Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency minutes of October 19th, 2017. 2, Northwestern Regional Airport Commission minutes of October 24th, 2017. 3, Department of Health and Human Services minutes of October 27th, 2017. 4, Bay Area Transportation Authority minutes of November 22nd, 2017. B, approvals. 1, approval/appointment of Deputy Court Administrator Don Wagner as magistrate. 2, 2018 hauler licenses. 3, appointments to boards and committees, county administrator and interim finance director. 4, county phone system upgrade and maintenance renewal. 5, approval to submit grant applications for 2% funding to the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians.
Okay. Are there any items on the consent calendar that any of the commissioners would like removed? I know, Sunny. B5?
B5 and B2, unless Chris can give us an update where
we
we're
can
at.
pull
with
them
that.
both
So
so we
let's pull
can-
B2 and B5.
B2 and B5. Anybody else? Anybody from the public or administration that would like anything pulled from the consent calendar? Okay, do I have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the consent calendar with the exception of items B2 and B5.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We don't have any special orders of business. We'll move right on to item B2, the hauler licenses. We always have questions on this one.
Yeah, so I updated the board, I provided this board a memo back in May, where at the time, the deputy administrator, I talked to the head of the solid waste management program with Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ, and in the memo, I outlined the discussion and talked about the county being out of compliance with the solid waste management plan with the abolishment of resource recovery and those functions being transferred over to administration. And where we left off with that was administration was going to look at bringing back resource recovery. And I have, now that Ms. Upple's administrator, I've updated her on that. And so now it's really a matter of administration putting that department back together and getting the employees in that department.
Okay, so basically, we're still licensing 2018
We're-
haulers,
yeah.
even though we don't have a department for which they're going to report.
So if you remember, the discussion in May was, we could certainly abolish hauler licenses if we amend the ordinance, but the first step, the critical step, is amending our solid waste management plan, and that was establishing the Solid Waste Management Planning Committee, which is a pretty thorough, lengthy process. And I believe at that time, the direction of the board was, let's go ahead and let's restart resource recovery.
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve B2.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Gorfulet. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, move on to B5. Sunny?
As I've said many times in the past, I believe the Grand Traverse Band is absolutely in violation of the consent agreement that was set forth between the Grand Traverse Band, Ottawa, Chippewa Indians, and Governor John Engler, and how the 2% money is being distributed. They simply do not, at least in my interpretation, do not distribute the money as outlined in the consent agreement. So I can't support any recommendations in regard to the 2% money as long as it's being distributed the way it is.
Anybody else? A motion?
I'd be curious to just know, more about that issue.
More about the compact that they have with,
Well, I mean, Sunny raises this every time we have a 2%, and I don't know what the issue is. I
it's
mean,
my
I do know, excuse me, I do know what the issue is, but I would be interested in knowing its relevance today.
actually, from my understanding, the compact that they had
Is expired.
is expired, but they are continuing to give us the 2%.
Yeah, really, the 2% money relates to litigation that occurred about 25 years ago, maybe even longer, that dealt with when tribal organizations first wanted to do casino gambling in Michigan, and there was a lawsuit. It was filed in the federal system and in the Western District of Michigan. And ultimately, there was a consent judgment reached between the state and the Ottawa Band and other tribes, I believe. And part of that consent judgment was they were going to turn over 2% money from certain winnings, I believe slot machine.
Electronic gaming.
Yeah, electronic gaming winnings. They were going to turn it over to local governments as a form of payment in lieu of taxes. And what the Ottawa tribe decided to do years ago was to give it to the county as more of a pass-through to local organizations that are providing public services.
So they're making the decision as opposed to us.
Exactly.
That's the only difference. We're still getting the 2%, it's just they get to decide
Well-
where it goes.
Correct.
Only recently, because up until about the last 5 years, that money, those checks were cut right to, Trigger Boxing or whatever organization they saw fit.
Right.
Without the county ever handling the money in the first place.
So now we
And
handle it, but we don't get any.
We handle it, but we have nothing to say about who they distribute the money to.
Yeah, I believe it first started in 2011. I believe Bob Cooney, when he was deputy civil counsel, gave an opinion basically saying it was permissible so long as the organizations that ultimately get the money are providing some type of service that the county could provide as a governmental entity.
Dan?
Did you say the contract has expired?
The
What
original
does that
contract
mean?
expired.
That-
The original compact that the tribes had with the state of Michigan requiring them to give the 2% expired.
So they really don't have to give us any more money?
They
In
don't.
October of 2013, I believe.
No, they don't.
So they're giving it to us anyway, you don't have to?
Right.
Gosh. So, well, I'll make the motion that we do accept what they give us, the way they allot the 2%.
Okay.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lathrop, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any further discussion? All those in favor, well, you have to take a roll call. Go ahead.
Wheelock?
No,
Gorflat?
I'll say no.
Mayor?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yeah.
Klaus?
Yes.
Crawford?
Yes. Okay. Moving on to departmental items, we have this 13th Circuit Court Community Corrections, acceptance of some grants for us.
So move.
Well, okay. Yes.
I will support the motion, but I do want
You still
Sharice
need-
to explain the
Moved by Commissioner
process.
Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Go ahead.
Commissioner Wheelock had asked me at our community, we have a Community Corrections Advisory Board that governs our community
Can you
corrections
introduce
department.
yourself for those at home?
Sorry, Sharice Scheibel, I'm the manager of community corrections.
Thank you.
And at our meeting, Commissioner Wheelock had asked me to come and explain a couple things about community corrections, because there's several of you that are new, especially our new administrator, that aren't quite aware of it. The first thing he asked me to explain was what is called the former work release facility. We use it as a residential facility for our offenders. That arose about 2 years ago. The state of community corrections is governed by the Michigan Department of Corrections. So we are a 13th Circuit Court program. And that's where the grant will come from, and that's where our funding comes from. They have a program called PRS. It's Probation Residential Services, and it services those felons who are on probation that need to go to a residential facility. There are facilities throughout the state that have contracts with the state of Michigan. It's not a contract we have with them at all. It's through the various agencies throughout the state. That funding equals to $48.50 a day per person in a residential facility. In that facility, they have to provide them all of their counseling needs, housing, and food for $48.50 a day. Medicaid, for example, pays $215 a day. Then the amount is governed by, or is part of legislation, so it's not a decision that can be easily changed for those amounts. So it's not going to go up really anytime soon. So 2 years ago, we were told by several of the providers that we have in the area. In Northern Michigan, we have one in Alpena, we had one in Great Lakes, we had one in Petoskey, and we have one here in Traverse City. We were told by 3 of them they were not going to continue with their contracts with the state. It doesn't make any financial sense, and I understood that with them. However, Addiction Treatment Services was one of our providers that's here in Traverse City that we have a very good relationship with. And they had approached us because the work release facility had been sat vacant for several years. And what they had proposed was they would come in and they would make the repairs to the facility if we would like to turn that into a placement location just for our offenders, or those in this region. And so we took that to the different department heads that were here at the time, and that got approved. Without that facility, we would have one facility in all of Northern Michigan, and that is up in Great Lakes in Sault Ste. Marie. And so that is where we would have to drive everybody to, or transport them to, or downstate to facilities that house up to 200 people at a time. They're basically dormitories type facilities. And so that facility is extremely important to us here. It houses only 12 people, so it's not a lot, and it's only males, but it's something that we have here. And so I just wanted to kind of explain to you what that facility is for. They provide, in part of the contract requires that there be 2 people at that house, the facility at all times. So it's always manned by somebody. The clients there are not ever left on their own. There's no drugs, no alcohol. While they're there, they have to do drug testing. They have to do breathalyzers, counseling, life skills classes, budgeting, all kinds of things while they're there. It's a really great program. And it's run through ATS, and so we partner very well with their true residential program that provides substance abuse treatment, and they typically will step down to this facility. And so it's a good kind of tiered environment for folks to get into a stable and supportive housing environment. Yes, ma'am?
And you do that on $48.50 a day?
They do that on
Plus feed them?
And so out of that $48.50, when they get that, the facility houses 12 people. They have to have 10 to break even. So if we don't keep that facility at 10 people a day, they're losing money. This is not a moneymaker for ATS. This is part of their mission. And so that's why they approached me and said, we're going to cut our services to you. We need to let you know we're not going to fulfill our contract or renew our contract with them next year. But if we can do this, we will renew our contract, but this is all we'll be able to do. Because they lost almost $80,000 one year in the difference that they could have billed somebody through Medicaid compared to what the state of Michigan was funding them. I mean, I completely understand theirs and the other treatment providers' decisions. And every year when those new contracts come around, more and more facilities don't renew their contracts. And so it makes it less and less and less locations that we can send individuals. So that's what that little facility over there that was supposed to be, how long ago? 20 years ago was supposed to be a temporary.
At least, probably closer to 30 years ago.
30 years ago was supposed to be a temporary facility.
I have another question. So they also get counseling, mental health counseling, psychological counseling?
They receive life skills classes, budgeting classes, and something else, but it goes along with the life skills classes in that facility. If they need to have substance abuse treatment, if they need to have anger management counseling, things like that, they go outside of that facility for those to an outside agency.
And who pays for those?
We have funding that pays for some of that, and then other of it, they may pay for themselves if they have enough income to pay for that. Or NMRI, which is Northern Michigan Regional Entity, they're the funding source for treatment in this area, they would pay for it. So it's various, depending on what type of treatment they're going to. some of the contracts that I have before you are for counseling and for things that
I saw that.
we fund for those types of things. We send those to those providers as well.
Thank you.
And I think it's important to note that this is not the only types of services community corrections provides, because we have the transition house programs, we have tether programs that put people out on the street or in their homes, and, we went through a period when community corrections was significantly smaller, that we were a very expensive boarding house, because people were out in the community all day long, and then they came into the jail every night and were housed there and went back out in the community the next morning. With Sharice and previous staff, we've been able to expand community corrections and have a lot less of that, which helps our jail population, plus saves Grand Traverse County and its taxpayers a lot of money.
On average, we have about 50 to 55 individuals out of the Grand Traverse Jail every day. We service Antrim and Leland as well, so that's just Grand Traverse County.
Anybody else? Any questions, Amy? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Sharice.
Yep. Move on to our drain commissioner. Has a couple things for us. Spicer Group.
Good evening,
Contract?
Steve Largent, Grand Traverse County Drain Commissioner. What you have before you is a contract, proposed contract between Spicer Group and the county to complete the engineering services for the Cass Road Drain project. This was a project that was started by the previous drain commissioner with good need. I mean, the need is obvious, which was exhibited this last October, early November, with the flooding that took place at Great Lakes Malting Company and the Milliken Millworks there in the Cass Road Drainage District. The problem was that there was no previous contract with Spicer Group, and so what we would like to do is get this contract executed to complete the engineering services for the Cass Road Drain project and put it out to bid by February of next year.
Yes, Dan.
I
Sorry.
make the motion that we do enter a contract with Spicer Group and get the job done. Yep.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Lathrop, seconded by Commissioner Mayer. Sonny?
We identified the funding for this, Steve?
Yes, we have the funding. There was a drain note that was taken out by the previous drain commissioner, and then I refinanced that note in June.
Rob?
Was the first note, was that $300,000?
Yes, correct.
And so it's refinanced like just the $300,000 or?
No, we did add $175,000 to that, and the reason is that it was recommended that it was going to take about this $70,000 to complete the engineering, and then they recommended that we add an extra $100,000 to that in case there were some legal needs, and that way we would not have to come back and get another drain note addition. And so if that money is not used, then we never draw from that.
Has, it is a drain district.
Correct.
But has, at what point do the people in that district start paying this back?
That, I mean, it's going to be right after we finish construction, and we're going to be taking out bonds to do the construction. And so I would say somewhere in 2019.
Okay, and then we'll be seeing that money come back if.
Correct.
And then do we, as the board, have to approve that?
I believe you do.
Work?
Yes.
To be done?
Yes. And we have to go to some public meetings as well in January as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dan?
And just interested, when you refinanced that note, did you do it with just your power as drain commissioner versus coming to the board?
Yeah, and I checked with Chris.
I'm not
Forsyth.
against it, I just wondered how you did it.
Yeah, I went to Chris and worked through Chris and the Roger Sweats from Dickinson Wright, and we did it.
Good
Yeah.
going, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on.
Now, there's a second one before you between GEI Consultants, and maybe it's not before you, I take that back. It's subject to approval and form by the Civil Deputy Counsel Forsyth there. But it will be the same type of contract. GEI was a consultant directly with Spicer Group, and I felt more comfortable having them answer directly to me as Drain Commissioner. That way their information wasn't filtered in any way. And so that's why I'm requesting that we have a not-to-exceed contract with GEI Consultants directly with the county.
There's an action request on page 106 for that.
So this is, Dan, go ahead.
I just interested for clarification. The hydrology contract is the one we're talking about.
Correct.
And I don't hear well. Did you say that Spicer Group could do that?
Actually, GEI Consultants were a subcontractor to Spicer Group, and and I just felt, it was more that there was less room for error if they reported directly to me.
And what do these guys do? What services will they provide you?
They provide the modeling for the crossings, for the railroad crossing, and also for the Cass Road crossing, and they also are going to help with the regulatory part of it. Stu Kogi, who is their biologist, and he's known Stu since he was with the DNR back in the 90s.
Will they help to manage the wetlands and stuff like that?
He's going to help us through the permitting process.
Permitting, cool.
Yep, and the hydraulics and the modeling and everything, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it really is a $20,000 not-to-exceed contract, which would have fallen under the previous purchase policy that I could have gone with the administrator's approval, but, given that we're, approving the Spicer Group one, I thought I'd bring this one before you folks as well.
Steve, Spicer Group was already started on this here project. In the future with other drains, are you looking at other firms to do the same work that?
Yes, this would be bid out. Was not bid out on the previous one. I'll bid out, and as time allows, yes. But that's according to purchase policy.
Does it need to? Just a question for me because I kind of see it go back and forth. With those being professional services, do they need to be really bid out? I'm with the understanding no, but I'd like to see them bid out.
I agree.
Aren't we talking about that in our new policy, that we want all?
Anything over $10,000 to be going for bid and come before the board.
Regardless.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Well, I appreciate the fact that by having these as two separate contracts, we don't hide one inside the other. We will actually get a hydrology report on this drainage district, and it is an area that has some significant topographical problems, and there's some significant flooding here, and the district is actually quite large, considering the amount of development that's actually in it, but all of it does affect where the drainage goes. So.
Dan?
I make a motion that we approve the GE Consultants to provide hydraulic analysis, and regulatory consulting services.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lathrop, supported by Commissioner Wheelock. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, and I apologize. I do have to leave for a meeting I had to pull out of.
That's okay.
So
Your job here is done.
Sorry.
You're okay.
We would if we could, Steve.
It would
Come
have
on.
been fun.
Who we kidding? Ooh, we have the TVs coming on for the Health Department, talking about the medical examiner contract. Welcome.
Good evening. Wendy Hirschenberger, Health Officer for the Health Department, and I have with me Dr. Joyce DeYoung, the medical examiner for Grand Traverse and Leelanau counties. Before we get into the actual contract renewal, I thought it would be good, particularly since at the last meeting we had the presentation from the lawyers about the opioid crisis. I thought it would be good just to sort of see some of the numbers for this year and where we're at, and get a summary. So I'm going to let Dr. DeYoung give most of the presentation that we prepared.
Okay.
there's something I don't understand, I'll go into you. No, hi, I'm Joyce DeYoung, I'm the medical examiner. In addition to the opioid crisis, I'm just going to give a little overview about what our medical examiner system is like here. There is a combined program between Grand Traverse and Leelanau counties, and this isn't advancing, so. Let's see.
There we go.
Okay. So, and these are year-to-date figures for us here. So there have been 348 deaths reported to the medical examiner's office from Grand Traverse, and from that there were 49 autopsies. You can see the numbers there. Just kind of some other figures too. Our average report turnaround time for the year is 33 days. We actually made a policy change in August of this year to attempt to get all of our reports out in less than 30 days. The national standard is 60, and you can actually go to 90 and not lose your accreditation, but we're really pushing for under 30. And but we also we've reviewed thus far this year 929 cremation permit requests. Those come to us with a death certificate that we're looking at all of those deaths to determine if we'll authorize cremation. And sometimes we see something on there that makes us slow things down and do more of an investigation. For Grand Traverse, we've had 5 unclaimed investigations, and really what that is somebody who is identified, we know who they are, but the family either doesn't have resources to claim the body or refuses to, or we can't locate next of kin. So there have been 5 of those as well, and they can be pretty time-consuming to complete that. By comparison, in Leelanau, there have been 34 deaths reported to us, 7 autopsies, 101 cremation permits. And I just think it's interesting, I was looking at it, like the Leelanau population is around 22,000 and Grand Traverse around 92,000, which is 24% of this population, but only 10% of the deaths occur there by comparison to here. That big difference is because you have Munson, so people are coming here to die, if you will. but I mean, we see that in other counties. If you have a major medical center, that will happen there. The office is accredited. Our office is, and not all medical examiner offices are accredited. And to be accredited, there are a large number of areas that, with a checklist of over 400 items that look at just a huge number of factors, not including the facility that we're working in. Are we adequately staffed? Do you have enough safety precautions? How do you handle your organ and tissue donations? But also even out at the scene, how are your investigators working the investigative process? Are you following the national standard for investigations? How do you keep your records? Do you have the right consultants? Are you properly credentialed? Are the people? Does everybody have a license? So all of those factors go into needing to meeting that. It's not a small task, and it is something that our office does have. We use medical examiner investigators, and these are the individuals who are local here. And when a death occurs, when it's reported to our office, we have medical examiner investigators who respond to the scene, and they're gathering information. They're oftentimes in contact with us in a real-time basis about what's happening. If an examination is needed, they'll coordinate with transport to allow for transport of the decedent. It's kind of a resource for local family members, and they also follow national guidelines. I know there may be some concern about the autopsy rate. These are our indications for autopsy, and we follow these pretty stringently. I think that Wendy can attest to that too. She has full access to all of our records, and is aware of what's going on, is looking at them carefully. And there isn't, if there is a death and there's been an autopsy, it's because there is a national standard, and that's why we've done the autopsy. So this is just the pages of why we do them. I just want to point out, we do have a morgue use agreement with Munson, and Munson has been a really, at least from our perspective, a really strong and supportive partner. They allow us to use their morgue at, I think it's at no charge, right? Yeah, I mean, just, and that's been actually a really positive thing. We have, Wendy wrote a grant for telemedicine equipment that would allow us in certain cases, if an autopsy is not required, we may be able to, say, avoid some of the transport costs and things by having someone up here showing us the body and doing kind of a remote exam by telemedicine. We're just about ready to launch that. All the equipment's in. There's just been a lot of IT type. Obviously, you want really strong security on these images that are being transmitted. So all of those factors are going in. But that goal would be to decrease the transport costs. I think this is something that was interesting. It's just kind of, if you look at where the people who, what their residence was, where they lived, but yet they died in Grand Traverse, or is this just Grand Traverse?
Just Grand.
This is just Grand Traverse. So this is their residence, but yet this is where they died. There's one California case, so there are people that are really from all over, and that may probably reflect not only that Munson, it's a regional medical center, but also just the tourism into the county. One of the changes that we've seen, and this is something that was pointed out to me by Gift of Life, is that when you look at back from 2015-16 and really over the past year, there's a significant increase in the number of referrals to Gift of Life. I think that's important from the standpoint, if you have that little heart on your driver's license, if you're a donor, you go and you get your driver's license, you get that heart on there, the only way that you're going to actually become a donor in many cases is if once you die, somebody has to notify Gift of Life. Otherwise, that heart means nothing, other than you were a donor, but if you don't notify Gift of Life, they don't know to contact your family and to make the arrangements to do recovery for donation. So we've seen, I think with our program, a huge increase in the number of referrals that are made. We're pretty aggressive about that. And it's just, quite honestly, the law requires us to make those referrals, but we're pretty aggressive about following the law and making sure those referrals are made. So that's been, I think, a real positive, too, that for the community that happened. One of the other major changes that we've noticed here is that there truly is a real opioid crisis. Obviously, Grand Traverse is not immune from that. And that if you look at 15, 16, and 17, even just year to date, this isn't, we've doubled from 16 to 17 the number of opioid-related fatalities, 12 to 24, and that will be higher by the end of the year. And we're seeing, not only heroin, but also fentanyl, and a fairly significant number of these, what they call fentanylogs, the fentanyl analogs, such as the carfentanil, which is like the, the elephant tranquilizer, or medication for that. So there's been a really fairly significant increase here in Grand Traverse County as well. Obviously, the number of fatalities has doubled. One thing also that I just want to bring you up to date on, for the past 2 years, a number of people have been meeting, and this is something that's been funded by Department of Health and Human Services to really make major revisions to the medical examiner system in the state. The people that have been meeting for the past couple of years, they're sort of listed there on the advisory board, the stakeholders, but we've had representation from state police, sheriff's departments, Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan has a representation there, Michigan Association of Counties, so MAC is there. Other than DHHS, public health, actually Wendy has been the only public health representative on the board. You've been serving on that board for the last couple of years with Gift of Life. So all of these major stakeholders have been involved, along with the medical examiners, to make some major revisions. Legislation is being written, and it hasn't been proposed yet. But one of the things that, probably the two major changes is, one, they would require that every county have a board-certified forensic pathologist as their medical examiner. Now, they're not going to be 83 of those, but for example, I serve 10 different counties. And so you would have multiple medical examiners, but they would all be board-certified forensic pathologists. There would also be a state medical examiner. I think that our state loses out on a significant amount of federal funding because we don't have a state medical examiner. There are federal funds that come out and they say, well, you need to move this money into your state through your state medical examiner. Well, we don't have one. We instead have all these counties. So we lose out on, I think, millions of dollars because of that. But it would also require name accreditation for all counties. It'll be interesting to see how this works out, because there are some real challenges certainly in the more northern counties and the Upper Peninsula. And I think that the greatest hurdle and the biggest challenge, and if I look to this area, I think it'd be
I think it'd be very easy to recruit a forensic pathologist to be in Grand Traverse County. That would not be a difficult thing at all. But what they're missing here is a facility. I mean, that's why it's Kalamazoo. We have a very large facility that was part of a new medical school that was built, and that's why we have the capacity to handle this volume. But I think as soon as, if there's some way, and I think Wendy and I talk about this just about every time we see each other, like, how could we get a facility? That once that were to happen, this would, you would become a major resource center and be able to offer this service locally. That's, I think that's a goal and something that we hope to see at some point. It's just that, so if anybody has any ideas on a facility, yes, oh, good.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry.
Wonderful.
I have another.
I do, we
I have-
just can't convince Bunsen yet.
I have another question.
Sure, go ahead.
The costs of autopsies, I think you're able to monetize that because I think we get bills that reflect the cost for the autopsies. Is there any ability for recouping those costs through insurance company dollars if the person was the victim of a crime or the person was the victim of an automobile accident for which they were not at fault? Is there any way for us to recoup those fairly significant autopsy charges that were being assessed? Have we made an attempt to do that? Has anyone made an attempt to do that? Do you know of anybody doing that?
I don't know of anybody doing it. I think that's a really intriguing idea. I know there's the victim, there's some funds for victims. I'm looking
No,
at the
this
prosecutors.
is insurance companies I'm talking
Yeah, right,
about.
but the
They're the truly deep pockets that I'm looking at.
Right, right.
Well, sometimes.
I honestly don't know if there is a means to do that.
But it might be worth looking at because I think we're getting charged several $1,000s per autopsy, aren't we?
It's a,
That would be several thousand, yeah. There you go.
And just so you know, I think there was a question at one point, we get all of the bills, but we then bill out. So they,
Sure.
that's part of our overall budget, but they pay this.
Right. But, the number of autopsies, I presume the majority of autopsies are prompted by suspicious deaths, which would be deaths that are perhaps as a result of a crime or an accident or, something where maybe there is insurance.
Yeah, another thing that I don't think the new legislation has in there, but if there would be a way to get refunded or money from the actual county of residence. So medical examiner is based on county of death, but like a third of the deaths in our county overall are not Grand Traverse County residents.
I like it.
I don't know that it could happen, but.
No, but you're our rep on that board, yeah.
Yeah, I've brought
no, and
that up
that is
several
one of the
times,
factors. I mean, that's something that they look at as on a county-by-county basis. A county like this says, let's do it, and then you go to the other counties that have a very low number of deaths, and they're all opposed. There's, by numbers, those counties, there are more of them than there are of the ones that have the major referral centers. But, yeah, they look at, if you just do it on a per capita basis, and, I think the estimate is like $3 per capita, and you should be able to run your medical examiner system, but if you do that on a county-by-county basis, it doesn't always work out. So.
Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned the state medical examiner. Would that be an appointed position or an elected position, and what would they do?
So that's a really good question. So that's one of the debates that goes on in this. It would not be elected. It would likely be appointed. I think they were avoiding it being, they wanted to avoid it being a political appointment so that, if the governor changes, that now you have a new state ME. So it would probably come through DHHS. And they would stay busy, making sure that if you have multiple centers, if you will, or offices, if you have a facility, let's say there's one in Grand Traverse, it would be part of the state medical examiner's job to make sure that they're adequately equipped, adequately staffed. They could be a facilitator. Their job, they don't want them to be necessarily somebody who goes around and, is punitive to somebody who's not doing something right, but rather a resource. And really, having it being allowed, having somebody in a position where now you could get this federal funding because you have a state medical examiner's office, and then they would disseminate those monies.
Michigan's gone through a transition from being a coroner or elected, years ago. Now we are in
Appointed
positions, which, has certain qualifications for the state law, but it doesn't require regionalization.
So if we're interested in that, we should talk to our people in Lansing then, the people we elect.
You're interested in?
Medical examiner.
State medical examiner.
Yeah, actually next Wednesday?
Is that Gaylord?
Yeah, you should have gotten an invite from the Michigan Public Health Institute to, all the commissioners are supposed to get invited to the Michigan Association of Counties. There's a meeting in Gaylord that's going to go over and touch on that, a lot of those changes.
Is that the one I signed up for in February in Grand Rapids?
It could be. They're having them at different places, and I would highly encourage any and all of you to attend because it will be really informative.
How many actual facilities are there within the entire state of Michigan now? It's only like about a dozen, isn't
It's
it?
probably about, Grand Rapids has one, Lansing, Kalamazoo, Genesee, of course, Wayne County in Oakland, Macomb.
I was thinking it was like 10 to 12 facilities
Yeah, it's
in the
probably about 10.
entire
I'm
state.
probably missing a few there, but not a lot. And obviously, they're all south.
South of US 10.
Yeah, and
Imagine that.
We truly are friends here, and we've done a lot of work in the last 5 years. Every chance that I've demonstrated to do, I'm asking the state for money. Even if it's a one-time funds to help us with equipment or something, but we know that if we're able to partner with additional counties, that we would be able to have here. We might just have, say, 4 or 5 counties, and then we would get additional revenue from other northern counties who probably want to get autopsies here and transport.
Right.
yeah.
And I was going to ask our chair if she would appoint an ad hoc committee to make that a task for the new year, to take a look at having a regional forensic pathologist. We're being asked to approve another 1-year contract, which gives us a year before we have to revisit this again. And so I would like us to use that year through having a committee that would work with Wendy and whomever else to take a look at what are the pieces that we need to regionalize this rather than, sending all that money downstate.
We all know there's a group of stakeholders that we have to bring to the table. And
Sure.
If we can't get them to the table, we can't make it happen because we're not going to build a facility on our own.
Right, but we have to start having the conversations, that's what we have to do.
And before we partnered with Western, we had 2 different meetings with the administrators from FDD and and the prosecutors and law enforcement. We had 2 of those meetings all at the same time, so those were, it was a unanimous decision, make the switch to reduce autopsies at that time, because autopsies are only in Kalamazoo, because we're having some issues with turnaround time on reports and being bumped from slots because we were just going to Grand Rapids for autopsies. We weren't one of their counties.
Yep.
We weren't necessarily a priority for that. And so that was a concern. So there were times we were having to find other places to have autopsies that needed to be done. So we had a unanimous decision from all of those people to make this switch. And we're in our finishing up our first full year.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, we even have, I have a forensic pathologist in my group who keeps asking, do you have a place yet in Grand Traverse? She wants to move here. She and her husband have a place up here already. And, and I think we'd be open to some type of, if you have one person, sometimes they want a weekend off or they actually want to go on vacation or some nonsense like that. But, you need to have, somebody that covers them then. And that could be kind of even a transition that until the volume is high enough to have a couple, 2 to 3 people or whatever, that they can, that if they're gone or that cases would come back south for that week or whatever, and then the rest of the time they're local, so.
Well, I would move that we approve the WMED medical examiner contract renewal for 2018 and appoint the ME and deputies. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, seconded by Commissioner Mayer. Were you guys done with your presentation? That was-
Yes,
I
we
figured
are.
future goals, it was,
No,
that
that
seems
was
to be
it.
an end. Okay, and I did note, we will, on January 3rd, at that meeting, so think about if you'd like to be on that ad hoc, I'll appoint at that
Okay,
time.
that's
Okay?
good.
So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to finance. We have some budget amendments in the packet. Get to that spot. Do you have any questions on those, or do we have a motion?
So move.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Klaus, to approve the budget amendments. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We also have our budget to actual revenue and expenditure report. I don't know that we need to actually approve it, or if anybody has any questions on it at all.
This is information. It is just for information
Just for
only.
information, okay. And Sherry did let me know that there was where it says that we've spent 75% so far, it actually should be 83.3, which is right on track for the end of, it's the end of September we're talking about, right? October. October. Any questions? Comments? Okay, we will move on to administration. We have some collective bargaining agreements that are all good. Tell us about those.
Do you want to know, do you want a motion for them separately or together?
All together.
All together?
One resolution.
One motion?
Right.
So moved.
Okay.
Support.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Klaus was
Oh,
first.
rat.
Sorry. Gotta be a little quicker.
Yeah.
Do we have any discussion, or you want to tell us about them? Is there anything that you want to note on any of those, or?
We have 4 settled now, and we have 2 more we're hoping to hear from this evening that are meeting. And then we've got some meetings on December 15th to settle some of or to at least meet on some of the others. We're
Okay,
getting
Dan?
there.
I want to thank Peter Cole. He did a marvelous job at putting corrective, wonderful language that in these documents that will help us for years to come. He really did a good job. So I just want to thank him. If he's out there, I owe you a jar of peanut butter. So,
I won't ask.
okay.
Any other comments or questions before we approve that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I will start soon on this big stack of signing all of those. We'll move on to appointments to boards and committees. So, lots of us met last Wednesday to decide who to put on some of our boards. So, I'll read them. So we would like to appoint, it has been recommended by the ad hoc committees that we appoint Nicole Van Ness as the urban representative to Beta.
Are we going to be voting on these individually?
If you would like, we
Yes,
can.
please.
Yes, okay, so let's start with that one. We have Nicole Van Ness as the urban representative on the Beta. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we do have Nicole Van Ness as the Beta representative.
Okay, is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Lathrop, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Nicole, you are it. We have on the Economic Development Corporation, Dennis.
Aruka.
Thank you. For the 6-year term through December 2023.
So moved.
I second.
Moved by Commissioner Gorfulet, supported by Commissioner Lathrop. Any discussion? All
He
those
was
in-
great.
He was great?
He was
Okay.
great. I was very
Good.
impressed with that guy.
Good to hear. We like it when we get good
He's got strong roots
applicants.
into the manufacturing community.
He was
you know, and
absolutely
that's-
great.
That's important.
Everything he said, he taught me stuff.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have Dennis. Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, appoint Eric Welch and Gary Howe to 3-year terms. You have a motion for that one?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Klaus, supported by Commissioner Lathrop. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Parks and Recreation, to appoint David Grams and Whitney Wera to 3-year terms. I have a motion for that one.
So move.
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Klaus. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Planning Commission. We have to appoint Peter Albers and Sarna Salzman to the Planning Commission.
Are these new appointments or reappointments?
Peter Albers, these are reappointments.
Those are both
These two
reappointments.
particular ones are reappointments, yes. Have a motion for this one?
I'll move.
Support.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Lathrop, supported by Commissioner Klaus. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Those are all approved. Moving on, we have revision to the travel policy. I offered, after listening at our last meeting to what everyone said when we discussed the travel, and hearing that the general consensus was that we wanted transparency, accountability, and to be budget conscious. I put forth 2 options. These would be added as Section 7 of the travel policy, that when commissioners would like to attend educational opportunities, this would be the procedure. So we have option 1, which is similar to the way we do it now. You submit a request. It's a little different. You know, before we've just said, ask the chair. I did put in there that your request should be in writing, along with an estimate of expenses. And then also, please provide a report about what you learned and what you did within 60 days of returning. So the taxpayers and the board can have the benefit of what you learned. Option number 2 is similar, except that you still would apply to the chair, but the chair would then put it on the next available agenda, and the board would vote. So those are the 2 options that I am putting forward. What do you think? We'll go with that. Anybody? Don't all jump at once.
With option 2, is there a report?
Yes.
Because
It's cut off, and I'm not sure why,
Okay.
but yes, there would be, yeah, it's exactly the same as option 1,
Okay.
except the whole board would decide, as opposed to just the chair. So it would come to the board for discussion. All of the requests would. Anybody else? Dan?
Well, I didn't mean it to become this onerous on the board. I think we could accomplish it perhaps more easily by, my theory has been, we have a budget, we divide up by 7, we each get to use that to travel, no questions asked, and then when you use up that money and you want to do something more, and I can see good reasons why that might happen, then you come to the board. I don't like the idea of the chair, and I'm not singling you out, Carol, any chair, having the power to say yes or no on extended travel. I think that should be a board issue. I don't like the idea of a chair giving themselves permission to travel. So I think we could make it much less onerous using that method.
Sonny?
Well, the history piece, we tried this once in the past where each commissioner was allocated so many dollars, it absolutely positively was a disaster. Because at that particular time, just thinking in my head who individuals were, Larry Inman, Wayne Schmidt, Herb Lemkool, all sat on Mac boards. They were driving back and forth to Mac every week or every other week. They were out of their travel budget very early in the year, and then they're all calling me up wanting to know if they can have some of the money that was allocated to me. I think, the idea is, if I was going to select one member from the board to represent Grand Traverse County at some sort of a conference, it somehow stands to reason it would be the chairman of the board. I know in my personal case, I simply do not have the time to attend a lot of things, along with the fact I attended a lot of things when I first came here. But I'm probably not going to go back and repeat those educational opportunities. Not to say that someone else on the board might not have value to that opportunity. It doesn't make sense for me to expend county taxpayer monies to go attend the same program that I attended 18 years ago. So it just doesn't, the programs sometimes do change, and we do get updates on those, and, I certainly read all the updates that come to me. But as far as spending time and taxpayers' money traveling to these things, I simply don't have the time available to do that. I acknowledge and appreciate those that do have the opportunity or do have the time, but at least from my perspective, I cannot commit time. I can make time available to make all of my meetings. I do all of my homework, as everyone knows, before I come here. But the bottom line is to go to different conferences, between the township and the county. I've been doing this 38 years. There's not a whole lot of value for me to go to a open meetings education program. So I just think the idea, whether these are approved by the board or whether they're approved by the chairman, I don't think that's, personally, I don't think it makes a big difference. If we're concerned that we want the entire board to approve them, I'm fine with that too, because I think there are great educational opportunities that are out there. We've been fortunate that we've always had someone on our board that's had the opportunity to be able to attend those, and we've also been very fortunate that those people come back and report to us about what they learned. And I think that's the key piece of this. It does no good to send someone to an educational opportunity if they don't bring it back and report to us or put it into action in Grand Traverse County.
Cheryl?
Well, I've been practicing law for a really long time and, used to go to a lot of these kinds of things. And actually, like medicine, law requires that you have to do a certain number of these things. I mean, there are credits that you have to get. Lawyers, not so much, because we write the laws. So we don't make ourselves do as much as we make other people do. But what I have found in my own life over the years is that regardless of whether it's mandated or it's optional, the most important thing that you gain from any of those things are the relationships that you make when you go to those things. The people that you meet, the connections, the business cards that you pass out, the people that you connect with, that you now have somebody you can call, or you now have somebody that you have a connection with in some other area. I think that by making the requirement of passing a hurdle of getting 6 people to say, yes, it's okay for you to go somewhere, politicizes something that ought to be freely given if we're going to have the money available. And I think if we have chosen a person to be our chair, whether it's you or you or you, that we should have faith that they're going to wisely allow people to participate in things. If somebody isn't given an opportunity to do something that they want to do, I think that we need to talk about that. Like, if you want to go to something and Carol says, you can't go, Dan, I'd sure be beating my chest at the next meeting and saying, I asked to go and she said I couldn't go. I mean, that's an issue. But that hasn't happened. There hasn't been anybody who's asked to go somewhere who hasn't been allowed to go. And we still have, I think, almost $3,000 in this year's budget for travel, which obviously we're not going to use before the end of the month. So the money isn't being abused. I don't think the power is being abused. Anybody who wants to go is allowed to go. It just doesn't feel like it's broken to me. It feels like, you know, if it's really a problem, maybe we ought to just cut the money down so far that it really doesn't become an issue because there just isn't enough money for anybody to go and do anything anyway.
Well, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I just, everyone has a level where they become uncomfortable about how funds are used. Now, for instance, what if one of us commissioners used all $16,000 of the budget? I'm sure we would say, one of us would say, enough's enough.
Has that happened?
No, but I'm trying to make a point. And the point is, there's a level in everyone's mind that it's being overutilized. And I hit that level. And so that's why I brought it up. Now, whether you agree with me or not is not the point, is that there is a level out there somewhere that this can be abused. So all I'm asking for is that we want some accountability and some visibility. I don't like the idea that a person can grant themselves the right to travel extensively. So that's obvious. To me, that's an obvious thing. Whoever the chair is shouldn't be granting themselves the ability to go to Washington, D.C. twice.
Well, has this been a problem for you in prior administrations that you've served with? I mean, did you have these issues with your prior chair that you served under, that you served with? Did you question Christine about the spending that she did when she was chair? Because she traveled a lot. She traveled more than Carol does. She actually spent more than Carol does. Did you question that?
No, I didn't.
And yet she did. She spent a lot more than Carol did.
So that doesn't make this right.
No,
Let's
but I'm
fix it.
saying what I'm trying to figure out where this is coming from, Dan, because it feels political.
Well, I'm sorry, it's not. And,
But why wasn't it an issue then with Christine?
I was greener then. I am now. But I'm just asking for, I don't think it's fair that someone can give themselves permission to travel, and I think we need to have some type of accountability.
Sonny?
Madam Chairman, I truly have not come to the point that obviously Dan has, that there's a problem there. So I'm going to make a motion that we leave the Grand Traverse County travel policy as it exists.
I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Wheelock, supported by Commissioner Mayer. Further discussion? Yes, Dan?
I guess I misunderstand. Did you move to do option 1 or 2?
No, I moved to leave it the way it is, because I don't think there's anything wrong with the policy we have.
What is
I personally do not believe it's being misused.
It's an unwritten
And I don't
policy
believe
that
it's
the chair
historically been
decides.
misused.
Okay.
It's not
What is
written.
our policy?
It's an unwritten policy that it has been the practice that the chair decides who gets to go and who doesn't.
No.
Although I don't know of any instance where anybody has ever been denied.
Well, you know, I remember going to these things. I've gone to, I think, 5. I never got permission from the chair. I just called Chris Kramer. So there is no permission. That
No,
isn't the
there
policy.
really isn't. There
That's
really
not the
isn't. I mean,
policy.
I kept an eye on
So
the budget this time, so to make sure that it wasn't going to go over, and that was about it. No, I have said, whenever I've said, you know, MAC's coming up or NACO's coming up, if you would like to go, see Chris Kramer and make the arrangements. I never insisted that anybody ask me.
I'm saying before you were chair.
I asked permission of the chair when I wanted to go.
I never
so.
did. And so I don't
I-
believe it's a county policy that we asked the chair.
No, it's not.
So if you want to go back to county policy, that's fine with me.
I didn't say it was that you
He's saying
had
we
to
don't
ask
wanna
the chair.
change the
I just
travel
said I don't want
policy
to
at
change
all.
the travel policy. I don't think we have a problem.
Okay.
So it
And
goes
you
back to, I
supported
can,
that, Tom?
That's
I
true.
can announce when things are, and if you would like to go, see Chris Kramer, and I will keep an eye on the budget. And
So
if it gets to
I
a
want to make it
point
clear, we're
where,
not asking the chair to travel.
no, you don't have to ask me.
All right?
You don't have to ask me then. Because it has, I asked when I was a commissioner and I was not the chair, it was my practice to ask the chair, hey, can I go? In fact, this year, I kind of didn't know what to do, and when I wanted to go to NACO, I actually asked Mr. Menzel if he thought I should go.
You know,
He said go, so he encouraged me. So it really is not even a practice, it's just go.
I want to bring up an issue Sonny said to me last time, that the reason I didn't want you to go, because I couldn't go. And I want you to tell Sonny about our discussion at the Colonel Craw, where I want you to think better of me, Sonny. Carol, you and I talked about going to Washington DC. That was over my birthday.
Okay.
And you asked me, what do I think? And I said, I think you should go.
Right.
And the reason I didn't go, I had time off for my birthday, that was August 8th, and I had plans with my family, so I had to make a choice. I really wanted to go.
Absolutely.
So
Sunny, I
want you
think,
to know that
tried to do
I
that.
did not
No, I know.
disparage her to go.
I don't remember making that comment,
Just
Dan, but
last meeting you did.
whatever.
So, Tom?
Oh, the only other thing I would add, and I don't think it's been a problem, is that we don't use tax dollars to do any meetings that are oriented towards any particular political party.
No, we've never done that.
We've never done that.
No, we've
I
never
don't
done
know if it
that.
needs to be said, but
No.
I think that would not be a good idea.
Generally, we go to, the opportunities are NACO is twice, MAC is twice, and there are some pop-up things like the Washington DC, and sometimes there are little free conferences or classes. I know Cheryl has signed up to go to a class in February.
Yeah, but I'm not using any county
Right.
money for
Well,
that, so.
But we can. So, those are the opportunities, and I'll continue to let you know about the opportunities, so. Oh, there's a motion on the floor,
There
right?
is.
So
Yes, sir.
do we need a motion just to leave things how they are?
Well, Sunny made the motion, so let's vote on it.
Okay.
Well, because there were two options on our agenda.
And we
That we
decided
don't
not to
have
do
to-
either one.
That we don't have to
That's right.
acknowledge.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Okay? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're good. Oh, where are we? We have no new business. Now's our chance for second public comment. Anybody has any public comment? No? Okay. We have we have probate court. Miss Amanda? Yes, welcome. This is one of our 5-minute updates,
It is.
but I'm not going to time you, but
I am.
Thank you.
I, Cheryl will.
Good evening, I'm Amanda Flowers. I'm the probate register. I've been with probate court for 10 years. I wanted to tell you a little bit about probate court and what we do. We handle adult guardianships when an adult needs decisions made for themselves that they can't make on their own. Covers their person only. We handle minor guardianships. This is when parents are unavailable. We handle conservatorships when a person needs financial decisions made for them. Also, we handle mental health commitments, wills, estates, and trusts. We serve the disabled, the elderly, the indigent, the homeless, the mentally ill, and many other people. There are a couple of issues I'd like you to be aware of. The first is that our office is not handicap accessible. It has a very heavy door that's difficult for some members of the public to open due to disabilities. But there's another issue we're facing. There's a serious shortage of guardians and conservators in our community. The problem is statewide. We are not alone here. Some counties have county-paid public guardians. We do not. Having a public guardian or conservator would mean that when a vulnerable adult in the community needs a guardian to make decisions for them, and they have no one who's able to take this on for them, the public guardian would be there to help them. It's estimated that by 2020, baby boomers will make up 1/3 of our population, and this is a popular area for retirees. Given this information, the shortage of guardians and conservators is an issue we need to address. Thank you for your time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the shortage of guardians because there just aren't enough people to do it, or is it because we don't have the money to pay them to do it?
From 10 years' experience, I would say part of both. There are people who just simply don't have anyone. There are people who can't afford to plan ahead. They have children or family members that would be able to fulfill that role. They can sign a power of attorney and designate someone to make those decisions for them later in life when they can't make those decisions anymore themselves. But a lot of people just have no one. And when that person also doesn't have any resources to pay a guardian, then you're talking about a guardian that's going to be possibly volunteering not only their time,
but gas money and postage and any other miscellaneous expenses that come up. So often it's, I would say, a little bit of both.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions about probate court?
Have we talked to facilities about the issue with your door? If not, we need to get that on a work order if there's a problem. You know,
I've written it down. You're right.
We budget money every year to make sure that our facilities are ADA compliant. And, you know, we just, you know, we're not going to be able to fix it all at one time, but we work on a project every year. So if this is a priority, we just simply need to get it taken care of.
Well, especially if it's a heavily
Involves
used
those
area
people.
that involves, yes, those vulnerable people, absolutely.
That would be wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you, Amanda.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to notices. I was asked today if it would be possible for us to go ahead and have our study session on December 13th. We have a couple of topics from administration they wanted to discuss. One is the Lafreniere property. I believe we have some requests from Community Mental Health to possibly utilize part of that property. What do we want to do with that property? How big is it? And so I think they want to give us an update on what that property could be used for, how big it is, all kinds of things regarding that property. Because we had thought about that, I think, as a potential for jail and law enforcement, and what are we going to do with that? And also I believe the Tart Trail organization wanted to come and update us on the Boardman Lake Loop Trailhead and some grants that we have for improvements to Medalley Park, correct?
Correct. And donations that will be coming to us for a match.
Yes. And any other informative things that we can come up with? Yes.
Just somewhere in the near future, I'd like to start discussion on a jail.
Well, that would be, that would be next, that would be
Yeah.
next Wednesday. Yes.
Okay.
It all kind of is an all-encompassing, what do we do with that property up there? And Cheryl's going, yes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, cool.
So we would have a study session on those items and maybe a couple others, December 13th.
10 years ago.
Okey-dokey.
Okay, Chris Kramer just was scheduling us for a 5:30 meeting on that date for the library board and the, those airport or whatever those two are. Maybe,
We'll get with her and coordinate schedules and figure out when else.
if we can
Would
maybe do
you
it.
want to do them for the interviews?
Bump that up, or?
Well, Bob and I both, we're working, so that was.
Or is it possible we could move this study session down to accommodate that?
When we take a look.
Okay.
Take a look and we'll let everybody
See how
know.
long we're going to need for the interviews.
So we'll have a study session on the 13th, and our second board meeting for the month will be on the
On the
20th.
20th.
Okay, and then in regards to the 20th, I know that there have been a couple news articles that came out in the past few days, and I was about some expenses. And I was asked in those interviews with those news outlets, what are we going to do about it? About some expenses that Mr. Menzel had while he was with us. I don't know what to do about it or if to do about it, so I was wondering if anyone wants that on the agenda for the 20th, or if everyone would like to just say, never mind, and we'll let it go. Cheryl, and then Dan.
Well, since you brought it up, I guess it has recently come to my attention, I mean, the Menzel money is, I think, $6,000 or, no, a couple $1,000.
1,000.
For 7, I didn't do anything with 16. 17 was a little over 1,000.
Okay, all right. It's recently come to my attention a much greater issue, and that would be that we have been paying health insurance premiums for 15 people who opted out of health insurance.
So is that something that you would like on the December 20th to talk about? Or
Let me get to my point here.
Alrighty.
Okay, and the amount that we have paid in premiums is $141,884. These are for people who opted out of health insurance for the county. This began this year, okay? And this began when our departed finance director was also running the HR department. You may recall that she was wearing two hats. So while she was both our finance director and our HR director, these people opted out. And there was no checking of, there was no cross-checking, there was nobody was watching the hen house. And it has cost us $141,884 that we have paid in premiums for people who aren't getting insurance, but we paid for it.
I don't understand.
Sure, I opt out, okay?
I know, I get that. I don't
Okay.
understand. It just started this year?
That's the amount of money that's been paid this year, out of
Okay.
this year's budget.
And you said it was our...
Jody Lundquist was
Okay.
the finance director, and at the same time, she was also the HR director. Because
Okay.
remember, we didn't have HR, so
okay, now I
they
get
put
it,
Jody
yeah.
in charge of HR, but
Right.
she had no knowledge or experience in HR, but they put her in HR. So she's supposed to be watching who's getting health insurance or who's not. She didn't. And then as finance director, she's supposed to be approving payments to the insurance company, which she did not. So that double check did not work, and we're now in the hole for almost $142,000 that we've paid out for premiums for people who don't even have the insurance, okay? So, it's my understanding that we're going to be able to hopefully get a portion of it back, but it's going to be a small portion. It's going to maybe be a quarter of that if we're lucky, which leaves us still a very big number. But the reason that I raise this issue is that I'm concerned about what other numbers are in that very large budget that we don't know about. Because in a quick little flip through, you found $1,000 worth of charges that you think might be questionable. Here's 141, almost 142,000, obviously error. You know, I brought up 867,000 or so in monies that were paid for consultants and other things. I mean, I just don't have any idea of what we're looking at. I mean, do you? You know, I mean, I don't know that we want to have a forensic audit because I know that's hugely expensive, and I know we have a new finance person coming in January, and he has a lot of experience with our budget, and he'll be a clean set of eyes, but I don't know that it's fair to him to, you know, dump this on him. But I'm concerned. These are big numbers. These are big numbers. Big mistakes.
So, would you like to have a discussion on the 20th as far as possibly having a forensic audit, and what would that cost, and is that something that we should do? I can put it on the agenda is what I'm asking. Do you want these things on the agenda?
Our fiduciary responsibility is
Yes.
one of our most sacred responsibilities. You know, safeguarding, you know, we're squawking about $16,000 in travel money. Here's $142,000 that we just threw out the window, okay? How much more is out there?
I think the piece is, you know, we certainly need to look at that, but we also have to make sure, we just this week completed the open enrollment program for all employees and county people, and as far as insurance going forward into 2018, we need to make very, very sure that we are not paying for people who are not receiving benefits or are not expecting to have benefits.
One would hope.
Commissioner Follett and Commissioner Wheelock, Vicki Uppel and I have been identified with that, and we have asked Human Resources. So when you say the check and balance, there's a check and balance now, and it just didn't happen with one. This was a year-long process, so it has been something that we have been working on with Mr. Henry, our HR director, and Priority Health. So we're hoping to get the whole amount back, and it's not just the people that opted out, we just needed to do, there's more to it than just that. So we have worked on that and working with HR to work with finance and how we do that.
And in place those checks and balances.
So I'm glad that there's a checks and balance in place now, but it doesn't diminish my question about what else is in that budget that we don't know about, because how...
In the upcoming budget or in
this is
2017
2017.
expenditures? Okay.
How do we know what else is out there like that until we get bit from something? I mean, how do we find it?
Tom?
I think that is what Vicki and I are trying to work on to ensure, particularly when, and I think it would be appropriate for Bill Hendry, at least since you brought it up, so it's not out there that we're not looking at it, so he can tell you what we're doing to ensure other components.
I didn't say you're not looking at it. I said from January until now, it obviously hasn't been looked at, or it wouldn't have been gotten to the point of $142,000.
So there were some gaps that we are making sure we're going to close, and we're going to continue to turn over every rock that we find, but you're right.
This is not an indictment of what you guys are doing. This is a question of what have we missed in the last year when we were told that everything was above board and everything was being handled properly.
We have Tom and then Ron. Tom, you had something?
Yeah, Cheryl's discovery is disturbing, obviously, and I would prefer, before we review what happened in 17, is to let Dean Bott start, give him a little bit of time so he can be part of this discussion, and not start it before he starts, because who knows, maybe there were underages and overages that we need to know about so that we have confidence in what had happened over the last 12 months.
Ron?
So these individuals that were not dropped from the insurance, but they didn't believe they had insurance, I'm assuming, and didn't use the insurance, did they get the $2,000 stipend?
They did. They received the stipend, yet they were still covered by the HMO. So what we're investigating is if there were no expenditures, which you would assume there shouldn't have been unless, they presented their card, then we're asking for a full refund from Priority. And I plan on taking it to the highest levels. Right now, they're saying their policy is 90 days. That's not good enough. We need to go back to January.
Okay, so is that $2,000 in your number as well? That
No.
$140,000?
No, it is not.
So it's on top of that? I mean, so that's...
Right. But that's only 15 people, so that'll be another 30. That's only another 30,000.
Well, right. Okay.
Dan and then Sunny.
I guess I'm looking to you, Vicki. What do you think we should do in this situation?
What we're doing, which is working with Priority to negotiate that away. If there's been no expenditure, we shouldn't be charged for it, is my position. And then putting in place a check and balance for when people enroll, to make sure that, every single month when we get that bill, someone's going through and looking at every single name and confirming that, yes, they're supposed to be receiving this coverage, or no, they're not, or they've been terminated, or whatever. But that we're not paying for anyone that's not receiving the benefit.
I'm talking about Cheryl's concern about
What else is
perhaps
there?
past problems. How do we handle that?
We all have a lot of fresh eyes on everything right now, so we're scrutinizing everything that we're seeing. And with Dean Bott coming in, I kind of like Tom Mayer's idea. Let Dean get here and let us work as a team, going into taking a deep dive into each
You're suggesting that
thing.
you and Jean and Dean take a look and see, because there could be reasons for this, all right?
Well, not in this instance. It was just human error.
Okay, that's a reason, okay? I'm just saying it might not be
That is
dishonesty
correct.
or anything like that.
I wasn't suggesting dishonesty,
No,
Dan.
I didn't say that.
Just a
Okay.
gap in the
No.
process that
I
we
just-
have to close.
But it's a huge mistake. It's a big mistake.
Exactly.
Okay.
Big
Thank you.
mistake. Over many
A
months.
couple things. One, we always talk about the $2,000 payment in lieu of benefit. In case you didn't notice last week, those are ran through payroll.
Yeah,
That $2,000 check is $1,445 and change. So.
I didn't even get that. When are those coming?
It's
in your box.
probably in your mailbox
It's in your
upstairs.
mailbox.
They did already, I think.
The other thing, and I've asked a couple times, and we've kind of gotten bits and pieces. When Mr. Menzel left, his separation agreement was for 3 months, but we agreed to pay him for 4 months in the fact that he was going to fill the scope of services, the opportunity, feasibility, potential sale or assignment of cell towers located on county property, and to design a curriculum architecture plan related to management development of employees which can be used by the county's Human Resources Department. We added $9,375.83 in salary out to Mr. Menzel with the understanding he was going to complete these two items. I haven't seen anything.
Well, can I answer that?
Okay.
He did present today to a group of us the contract on the towers. So he filled that. And tomorrow, he's having published this study, and he'll be done then with that. So he has done both those things.
I'm just asking, we are down to the 6th of December, and we haven't seen anything.
And as of tomorrow, they'll be done.
We have one more meeting, so I wonder where the report is.
Who is he presenting, why is he presenting to you? Shouldn't he be presenting to the
He
administration?
presented it to her.
Yep, yeah, well,
The architecture? No, I've never received it.
Pardon?
the cell tower stuff.
The cell
Cell
tower?
tower, yes.
Yes. The,
And then I know that
HR
tomorrow he's printing
architecture.
up the,
I'm assuming it might be with Bill Hendry. He's not,
Yeah.
he doesn't have an appointment with me tomorrow.
okay. Well, I know that we had a meeting day which I attended, and he did present a finished product on the towers. Now, we have to make a decision on that, but he did do that. And I happen to know that he's putting to press the program that he's discussed, and
Good.
and it's going to be printed out tomorrow by the copy shop.
I see.
That's all I asked for is the reports on the assignments that were given to him as part of the separation agreement.
Okay. So back to my original question, which was, is there anything that anyone would like discussed at the December 20th meeting about anything that was in the newspaper in the past few days, or any of that? Are we letting it lie? Or are we doing anything, or are we going to wait? Are we going to just see what happens? What's the general consensus on it?
I don't think it's timely. I think we should wait until after the first of the year and see what else comes up when we look at the budget. There's no point in piecemealing it,
No.
I guess, is
No.
my feeling.
Okay.
Well,
I feel that there-
It may all amount to nothing.
Exactly.
In which case.
I'd combine it with the beginning of Dean Bott as finance director.
We'll see what kind of fleshes out.
I would like to, again, as always, suggest that we schedule a strategic planning session directly after the first of the year.
And we will do that.
So we can talk about goals and objectives of the county board and moving forward. We've got a lot of different people involved, and I think it's important.
Okay.
I don't think we really completed that process a year ago, so I'd like to
I know.
make sure that we do.
Okay,
moving
I wrote
forward.
that down for January 3rd as well, and we'll talk about scheduling a strategic plan at that time.
For the other potential study session, the last week of December, I would say that we cancel that, so, the
Thank you.
27th. Yeah.
I don't know who would even be here. I'm not going to be here, I assume
Yeah.
that's
But I mean, we
not-
could publish it
27th.
before, 3 or 4 days before the 27th. We could
Yeah.
let it happen earlier.
Yeah, but we will have a study session next week on the 13th. Anybody else for any notices or anything? Okay. We need a closed session, please say no. Okay, thank you. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.